Hello there, Internet. So, just due to some recent events, I have come to the conclusion that I need to outsource my abilities to put out content. So, I'm going to probably start doing more guitar content more often. So, I have, a whole bunch of guitars, and I don't really know how to play them. So, this is actually a little journey that I'm doing in an attempt to learn how to play guitar, and as I learn and develop my skills, make a little YouTube channel to really emphasize like where I started from and where I might potentially go down the road. So I have been practicing for a little while now, and I've definitely got some skills down. I've been practicing more skill set than knowledge, just to kind of get faster and better at it, just finger placement and getting the muscle memory memorized, and just things like that. And I figure, now that it's been a little while since I've been doing that, I'd go ahead and I'd bring you guys another guitar that I have. So this one right here, much like many of my other guitars, is a home build from my youth. This right here is actually a classical guitar, has nylon strings on it. This is a Borswood Esteban signed guitar. And whenever I had gotten this guitar, well, we'll discuss, Esteban signed guitars in another video and just how much of a freaking monstrosity those can be. But anyway, whenever I'd gotten this guitar, much like many of my other guitars, it was just basically just a shell. I had the body and the neck, and that was it. Now, I knew that this right here was a classical guitar. I looked up the brand, I looked up the everything on this guitar. Luckily, you actually have the little sticker inside of the sound hole right here that tells you exactly what this guitar is. No truss rod or anything on this guitar, so it's definitely not a steel string guitar. It's just straight wood, and although it is a very cheap guitar, typically straight wood guitars without a truss rod or anything like that tend to be more classical guitars because steel strings will just bend that neck, and even your very dirt cheap guitars will have a truss rod inside of their neck. Even if they are not adjustable, it will still be there. But we got nylon strings on this guitar. This was actually the guitar, this was the first guitar I think I've ever strung up, and it still has the original strings on it because I threw some strings on there and then I played with my steel string guitar, and I never really touched this thing because it was nylon string and I just didn't know much about it. And I just, from being here in the United States, I just knew more about steel string guitars. Of course, I barely played with my steel string guitar as well. For the most part, I played with my PV Rockmaster, which had a built-in, one of those built-in tuners that you can plug headphones in so nobody can hear you play and nobody can hear just how bad you are. And growing up, I had to stay as quiet as possible so I didn't get the attention of any adults around me, because that would have definitely been a bad thing. So I definitely had to keep quiet, so I didn't play with this thing very much. I definitely played with my steel string more than this nylon string. However, that being said, this nylon string, although it does have some problems, is actually much, much more playable than my steel string guitar. Not only does it stay in tune a lot better, but the action is much closer to the neck than on my steel string. Now, as we get more over here to the first fret, the action does get dramatically close to the fret. So this right here is pretty much as low as the action can get. The more astute among you would have noticed that I don't even have a nut on this bridge. This bridge is not original, and I doubt that it is the correct bridge. So this right here is literally as low as this action can get, and we're still rocking, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch over the 12th fret. So it's pretty up there. It's not quite, not a little over 1/4 of an inch, a little under 1/2 an inch. That's why I'm saying 3/8 of an inch. So it's doable, but it's definitely better than my other one. We do have a little bit of neck bending right here. Whenever I'd gotten this guitar, this thing was like soaking in water. So I'm not the least bit surprised that we have some wood damage on this guitar. And the tuners themselves are just standard classical, nylon string tuners. I picked them up off of eBay. They were the absolute bargain barrel cheapest ones that I could find. And whenever I had named this thing, typically with my unbranded guitars, I will take a Sharpie and I'll name the headstock. You can't really see this one all that well anymore, but I can see it. And I named it Overdose because of the extremely high action. I said if this action was any higher, it would be arrested by the DEA. So nylon string guitars tend to lead themselves more towards finger picking styles and things like that as opposed to strumming styles. Now you can strum a nylon string. I mean, it sounds like you're strumming a guitar. And you can definitely hear the different tones that are coming out of it. But that being said, it just doesn't have the same fluid to it that a steel string guitar would have. And for something like this, just with with how the harmonics are on the nylon string versus the steel string, they just lend themselves better to a finger picking style or single picking, like a soloing style. There we go. That's the terminology I'm trying to depict here. So I was actually practicing the other night, and I practiced for many hours, and my fingers are actually swollen and torn up. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come make this nylon string video as opposed to one of my many other steel string guitars, because my fingers hurt. But I'm still going to attempt some stuff, show you guys how this thing sounds. Alright, now by all means, I am absolutely no expert with the guitar. I'm going to go ahead and say that right now. But for the most part, I get nothing but encouragement to go ahead and continue practicing and continue to learn how to play and develop my skills. And this, I've just learned that this guitar community is actually very nice. Many other communities I'm involved in, they'll say, you're garbage, get out of here, don't even attempt it, you should go home with your tail between your legs. But not you guys. You guys seem to be very encouraging. So this right here, I'm going to go ahead and do Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here. This right is the intro, but fair caveat, I learned this intro myself just by listening to it on the radio and mimicking it on guitar. So it actually is played differently on guitar that I do it than it is, well, I play it differently than how it is actually played. It doesn't, there are some differences in the tones and whatnot. I do play different notes, but this right here was just me depicting, just figuring it out based off of sound. Man, this thing sounds beautiful. And then they go into the G chord, and I don't know the actual chorus, and don't expect me to start singing. But wow, I haven't played this guitar in a very, very long time, and I gotta tell you, that that kind of gave me some goosebumps. I might have to break this thing out and actually play it some more. Now, once we get up to the 12th fret and whatnot, our tone is definitely off just because of this incredibly high action and how high you have to push the strings down. But that being said, the intonation is not terrible. You have a little bit of buzzing there, but with how cheap this guitar is and just how it is, I'm not surprised. So this right here, we do have some fret inlays on the top of the neck right here, but I was just used to my steel string guitar, which had fret inlays inside the neck itself. So I actually took a pencil, and you can still kind of see the remains. I took a pencil and I marked all the frets that, where it would normally be marked, because that's where I'm just used to looking. It wasn't on this guitar, at least I don't think that it was. I also took a pencil, and whenever I was learning the pentatonic scale, I took a pencil and I scribbled X's or lines or something like that along the guitar neck where all of the root notes were, and that was one of the things that helped me learn where the root notes were. As a matter of fact, I remember a while after that, whenever I had stopped practicing guitar, what I had done was I went back to that guitar and I relearned where the root notes were. And I did that with those old pencil marks from years and years and years ago. This right here, with it being just a dirt cheap, absolute bargain barrel, bottom of the barrel guitar, I don't have to worry about, marking up the fretboard. It's not going to diminish the already non-existent value of this guitar. That being said, even though it is pretty much valueless, the sides of the neck themselves have been worn just from years of playing. Whenever I'd gotten this guitar, like I said, it was just a shell, and the person I'd gotten it from was a very avid guitar player. And he played these things all the time, and he was always customizing and doing all sorts of stuff. And I guess with this bottom of the barrel Esteban signed guitar, he took the hardware off and stuck it on another guitar, which was definitely a much, much better option than trying to play on this body. But since I was broke and a child with no job, I went ahead and I got this thing, and I decided to go ahead and give it my 2 cents. The frets on it, yeah, they're definitely garbage. If you're not careful, then you could probably cut yourself on this, and I could feel like some rough, sharp edges. The wood itself, like I said, worn down. We're not gonna throw that in as a caveat, but the frets definitely could have been better. I might polish those up now that I am many, many years older and I kind of know what I'm looking at. The nuts, I recall this basically just being a plastic nut on this thing. I got the cheapest possible things I could find to throw this guitar together. And I think I spent like less than $10 building this thing. Just with the way that this thing is, as long as I stay like within this area of the fretboard, I shouldn't have any issues with like tone and whatnot in this guitar. It sounds pretty decent down here, but as we get more up here, it starts to go off itself a little bit. Yep, definitely have some buzzing there. That high E string. Maybe if I polish up these frets and get the dust off of this thing, it would help it out a little bit. Yeah, no matter how hard I press down on that, we just kind of got a little bit of buzzing. And that's fine. I mean, this you can see where the neck is actually kind of warped right there just from the crap that this guitar has been through. So this right here is not, well, I guess, A chord and higher, or A note and higher, A string and higher. Those sound all right up here, but the E, yeah, that's a no-go. But everything else, yeah, that sounds all right. See if I can remember how to do this. Something like this, I think, if memory serves. I think that is somewhere around how that's played, but I can't quite remember how. But anyway, that did give enough tone example for us to go ahead and listen to the guitar. Let's do something a little bit more country blues style. I'm going to go ahead and do a triad on our little blues note up here, or a little blues scale up here, versus trying to do a blues scale down there. Alright, that actually sounded pretty good. I like this thing. From like the 5th fret down, we're pretty decent. And although chords don't sound all that great, they still sound, I'll give it, they sound better than that steel string acoustic guitar I was playing before. And the infamous C chord. Ow. I definitely gotta practice that C chord. How about a D? Little bit of a buzz. Which string are we buzzing on? That E. Crush that down. There we go. Now I do my D chords a little bit differently than other people. I do a D chord like this, so I can go back here and do a D minor in the event that I need to. I also do my A chords a little bit differently than other people. I do my A like this. Bit of a buzz. These strings are actually not in the correct orientation because the nut I have on this thing is not right, and that does kind of throw me off from what I'm used to. But anyway, I do my A chords a little bit differently, and the reason I do that is so I can go back here and do A minor, and then I can do A7 if I need to. But the one thing I don't like about doing an A chord like that is in the event that I want to do something like this, I can't do that unless my pinky is there, and that's just one of the things I got to pay attention to. So I have two ways that I do an A chord, and it depends on what it is that I'm playing. I'm either gonna do it like this or like this, depending on whether or not I do not know the name of this note, but whether or not I'm gonna use my pinky on the B string on the 3rd fret, or whether or not I'm gonna just do a regular old A minor. That was wrong. A minor, there we go. Now this right here is, I think, the last of the guitars that I got from the batch of just random guitars that I had gotten from this one dude who was going to throw them all away, and I wanted to bring them back to life. This right here does have water damage all along the body of this thing. And as a result, the wood and the laminate is just, beyond salvageable. Like, there's nothing on this guitar that can actually be saved. If you wanted to replace some stuff on this guitar, you're better off just taking off the stuff that I had put on there originally, because at least it is not water damage. This right here is a burn mark from a lighter. One night I had gotten drunk, and I was just kind of hanging out, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna scar this guitar. It's been damaged so much, and I want to go ahead and put my own little piece of damage on it, because all I've done is basically improve this guitar, and this guitar, just like the character behind it, is a damaged guitar that still makes music, and I wanted to leave my little insignia on it. So I was drunk one night, and I just kind of had a lighter, and I was like, just F it, let's lighter, bam. Now we have ourselves a little bit of a burn mark on there. I don't regret that. This is a dirt cheap Esteban guitar, and I mean, hell, this thing right here, in the event I need to, it goes into the fireplace to keep me and the family warm. I had no idea how to wrap strings on a nylon bridge, so I looked it up, and I got lucky with it. And I remember just struggling to hell trying to wrap this thing and get it properly, set and oriented. So I did wrap this, and I did an all right job with it. But man, every time I would go to tighten those, these strings to tune it, these right here would just consistently come loose, and it took me the longest time to figure out the proper way to wrap this without it sliding down. And I just learned that it's more like a knot than it is an actual wrapping. So up here, this is, like I said, the first guitar I've ever tried to string, and as you can see, the strings up here are completely randomized and have no orientation to them whatsoever. Like we have, what do we have here? We have the A string, the low E string. No, we have the A string, the G string, and the low E string. God, this thing is such a jumbled up mess. I'm gonna break out my flashlight because I can't see with everything how tangled up it is here. All right, so we have the A string, the D string, the low E string, and then the low or the high E string, then the low E string, the B string, and then the G string. And this is the order that these strings are in on these tuners down here. So obviously I set this up whenever I was a young child, and I never much paid attention to the orientation that the strings were supposed to go in. And this is just one of those things that happens whenever you give someone who doesn't know anything about guitar a guitar and tell them to get it going. And we definitely have quite a bit of warpage inside of this neck. Like, that's the reason why the action is so high, because the neck is just bent right here. And unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that. That's just, these are incredibly cheap, like very, very bottom of the barrel, probably like plywood. And if I had to make a bet, I'd say this right here is probably what's the kind of wood that like flakes apart and falls apart whenever it gets wet? I can't remember the name of that wood, but it's like a really crappy pressed together wood. It's like a pressed wood, and that might be what this is. But anyway, besides that, I mean, we got ourselves a bunch of scratches and whatnot, but I do like the actual look of the wood. It's obviously like a plywood that has been dyed or coated, because underneath, where you can see where the scratches are, it is just a very standard looking plywood underneath. And I don't see any wood grain or anything like that, so this is definitely just some kind of laminate that goes on top. Alright, well, folks, thank you ever so much for watching. Go ahead and show inside right there. We got our little Esteban insignia. Thanks for watching, guys. I do appreciate your time. Do feel free to like, subscribe, and share. I am going to try and continuously get better with my guitar videos and my skill sets. So if you want to see my progression as that goes on, then feel free to stick around, subscribe to the channel, like the video. And I think that is all I'm going to do for the outro of this. Hopefully you guys had fun. If you have any questions about any of the guitars that I have built, wow, I just talked towards this thing, and oh my, the acoustic embellishment that comes out of it, that stinks. Oh, I'm not sure if that's the guitar or my breath though. But if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to ask down below. I don't get any comments on this channel, so I'll go ahead and answer them the best that I can. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day, and I'll see you all in the next episode.